Yo, yo, yo. What's good? What's good? It's Stormy B Man, and I am back. Welcoming you to Kung Fu Film Focus for this Thursday, September 5th, 2024. And this is a focus that we will be featuring in tonight's show, Shaolin X-Monk, also known as Notorious X-Monk, a film out of Hong Kong, made in Taiwan during the height of the Kung Fu craze, the second Kung Fu craze, which was inspired by films made by Yuen Wu-ping starring Jackie Chan. Notorious X-Monk stars a number of people that if you're a Kung Fu film buff, you've seen these faces and recognize them as they turn up here. This was a film made in 1978, just on the heels of successes like Jackie Chan's Snake in the Eagle's Shadow, as well as Drunken Master. Yeah, these films, it's funny how, like in Hong Kong, their film genre followed everything that was successful with copycats. Copycats are always, in society, it's part of what we could call and refer to as pop culture. When something is successful, here comes everyone else trying to give their play and state their claim to what is successful. And if the copycats are successful, what typically transpires after that is, as history goes on, there's a battle over who did it first, who did it best, that type of thing. And we can identify with that here in America as we see it so much. But in the Hong Kong film industry, they definitely followed the wave of what sold at the box office. So once Jackie Chan's comedy kung fu with extreme training sequences came through, then other film companies found athletic, acrobatic stars to put in their films, because Jackie was one of the most athletic and acrobatic stars of that time. So they tried to find film leads who could repeat what Jackie was doing. In this case, they called upon Blackie Ko. Now, Blackie Ko is a Hong Kong legend who was both an action star in front of the camera, a choreographer behind the camera, and a stuntman. He started out in 1971 and continued his career on until the early 2000s. He passed away in December of 2003. But he was well known in the Hong Kong film industry, a very good martial artist, as well as stuntman, acrobat. He had an opera background similar to the likes of Jackie, Yuen Biao, Sammo Hung, and Angela Mao, and so forth. But in this film, he actually played the lead, and he was the action choreographer for this film. Blackie Ko was one of the guys who would always take a back seat to main stars, but his fighting prowess was better than half the guys he played in films with. The lead co-star in this film is John Liu, the man who famously did his kicks with his right leg. If you ever watched any of his films like Secret Rivals, The Invincible Armor, and so many others. John Liu was very famous for his kicks. Not many people realize that he was also a student of Tan Tao Lang, Korean martial artist and expert who also was a star during the mid-70s through the early 80s himself. These actors with their martial prowess were often sought because they could not only do martial arts for real, which is what producers went for after the demise of Bruce Lee. They wanted to try to find performers who could actually do it, and they could teach them to act or teach them what they needed them to do in front of the cameras. The only thing about that is we had a bunch of guys during the boom, first and second boom. They were out there, but a lot of them didn't have the cinematic charisma that producers really sought. So time and again, they would make film after film. Sometimes guys would be typecast. Sometimes they would put them in different types of roles to see if audiences would respond to them. And basically, it came down to how good the action could be designed for a film. And so after they started looking for guys with charisma, they began to just focus on the guys who could really perform in front of the camera. And that's where you began to see the best of the martial artists do their thing during the first and second Kung Fu movie boom. One of the things about the Kung Fu movie boom also was getting away from the realistic form of martial arts that Bruce Lee introduced during a short period of time. And so they sought guys who were more athletic and who could do the choreography that the average performer could not reproduce in front of the camera. It really made a difference when you had people who could really do it. And so producers went for that. Now again, as I said, this film starring Blackie Ko, who was also the choreographer for this film, and the co-leading star was John Liu. These two made for interesting pair here. We'll get into what the storyline was regarding these guys, but to round out the cast, we saw also veteran stuntman, action man, and one of the cinema's favorites during this era, Jack Long, brother of Mark Long, and noted for films such as The Seven Grand Masters, Unbeatable 28, and so forth. Jack Long was always revered as one of the best guys who could play an old guy, and still be good and display his kung fu. He's been a character co-star in numerous films. He's been a lead in other films, but like his role in here as a co-star, he's playing another old veteran martial artist, and he has it out for Blackie Ko's character, who's in love with his daughter. And there are plenty of scenes where he can beat Blackie up before Blackie learns martial arts. And as I said, we'll get into the plot. The daughter of Jack Long in this film is played by Cecilia Wong. She's noted from a lot of films of this era as well. And she's even had films where she was the lead. She was a martial arts expert that also performed very well in front of cinematic cameras. The co-choreographer of the film, Alan Chu Chung San, he is also another noted acrobat and stuntman and fight choreographer that was a part of these films during this particular era. He's been in the Jackie Chan films. He's been in films with John Liu and Dan Wong Tao and Jack Long. He finds himself, along with these guys, coming out of Taiwan. He was one of Taiwan's best martial artists and cinematic fighters. And the film also starred the likes of Shi Ten Ken. Shi Ten Ken is another guy who was a veteran actor, always played either bad guys or a lead henchman. And his role is served here in this film, pretty much playing the same against type. And also the cast is rounded out by Chang Chi Ping. Chang Chi Ping is also another guy. You could recognize his face if you watch the Kung Fu films. He always played an unlikable character, a villain. Sometimes he was one of those lecherous guys that went after the ladies and stuff like that. And you always wanted to see him get his, you know what I'm saying? So he was one of those type of characters in the film. The film poster that you see that I have on the screen there depicts John Liu doing one of his famous Taekwondo sidekicks. He was definitely a kicking master cinematically. That's what he was noted for more than anything. He had those rubbery legs and could do extensive kicks and splits that would later be adopted by the likes of Jean-Claude Van Damme when he began to find his way into martial arts cinema in America. So that pretty much establishes what we have here with the cast and with everyone who was out here to do their thing. I enjoyed this film, but I did take note of the fact that this was just another play on what Jackie Chan had been doing already. That's, again, I can't stress that part enough. Like when a film was successful, producers would make tons of the same type of films to the degree that they would lose box office because the people knew right away, oh, you're trying to be like Jackie. And Blackie Ko in this film is playing somewhat of a nitwit. Cecilia Wong's character and he love each other, but her father despises him because he's pretty much a bum, a vagrant, and he's always around his daughter. So he beats him up all the time, or has his henchmen beat him up. And he's a good-natured guy. He doesn't have anything going on. He doesn't have any skills. He's kind of uneducated. He's very poor, but he's in love with this headmaster's daughter. And of course, they want him to stay away from their home, but he won't. He comes in late at night, climbing through windows to see her and stuff, and she's sneaking out to see him. And you know, the dad decides to get his henchmen to go out and beat him up, you know, and they threaten to kill him. If you keep seeing my daughter, we're gonna, you know, take you out. So, and he was like, no, I'm not gonna stop seeing her. It was really stupid because it's like, I don't know anybody that's gonna take a beating like he was taking for that girl. It wasn't that serious. But he did. And what was interesting, he was very athletic, so they'd be chasing him all through the town and stuff, and he's climbing walls and on top of roofs and everything, and they're trying to get him, you know. And he vows to to not stop seeing the girl. So they banish him out of town. And in the meantime, he has an uncle who is an ex-monk from the Shaolin Temple. And John Liu is playing an inspector, an investigative inspector who's looking for that monk because he's done some crimes. Now, Blackie Cole's uncle, who's like a merchant in a shop or whatever, he walks around with a cane. He's incognito. He's in disguise as just a elderly, merchant of a shop. And he's very mild-tempered and everything. So he gets bullied around just like Blackie does. But he's that notorious monk that John Liu is actually looking for. And Blackie doesn't even know his uncle is that guy. And it's not his blood uncle. In Hong Kong films, when they say uncle or brother or sister, it could be just a kinship type of thing when someone's been close to you like family. So they defer or refer to that person as such. And that's what the case was here, where he wasn't really the nephew of the ex-monk, but he was, endeared to him because that guy took care of him. So there are plenty scenarios where you get to see Blackie getting beat up and getting chased throughout the town and stuff like that. His uncle is trying to save him. He even goes to the police to see if the police will help. All under the guise of really actually being a bad guy, So that's what was happening with this film. And it's funny because the character that Blackie is playing, that's kind of like what you would see in the Jackie Chan films. An outcast, a wayward dude that nobody likes or respects. He gets bullied around or kicked around. And then you would have someone like Simon Ewan, the old drunken master or whatever, the bummy guy, the hobo guy, that he crossed paths with that guy, and that guy ends up teaching him how to fight or mentoring him some kind of way to build his confidence up to learn to fight and stuff like that. So that's what happens in this case. But Blackie runs into John Liu, the inspector. And the inspector, who's a good martial artist, he sees him fight a couple of times and he was like, "Oh, could you teach me Kung Fu?" And he was like, "If you could help me find a man that I'm looking for, I'll teach you Kung Fu." And he was like, "Well, who are you looking for?" He's like, "I'm looking for a man that's a monk." And Blackie's like, "We don't know any monks here in this town." It's like monks have bald heads and, they don't eat meat and this and that. And, John Liu is like, "Well, he might not look like that right now, but, yeah, that's typically what a monk would look like." So they go around about through different scenarios, and he never for once guessed that it was actually his uncle that John Liu was looking for. So there are moments where Cecilia Wong, she ends up showing her fighting prowess in the film, and it takes the film to a different level when you understand that as much as she loves Blackie's character, that the fact that she could really fight, you would think that she would just run away with Blackie and they go somewhere else and live and have a life together because she could teach him her Kung Fu. But for whatever reason, that's never really something that manifests, or the ideology of it or whatever. So it was kind of weird. Now, there was a review online from this movie written by a gentleman by the name of M. Pong Pun. And this is a review, a short review that he wrote back in September of 2004. He says, Lung Chu Fei, who's John Liu, is a lawman who arrives in the town to track down a bandit monk who is responsible for 18 bank robberies and 20 deaths. Ling Chu Fei gets assistance from a local named Chow Lee, which is played by Blackie Ko, to help track down the monk in exchange for some kung fu lessons. Eventually, the ex-monk begins hatching his little plan by framing up and killing those who may be able to expose his identity. Eventually, the ex-monk, known as Qi Gong, Alan Su, has his cover blown by Ling Chu Fei, and now he must face him and Chow Lee in a showdown to the death. It's a decent flick. The action scenes are what make this film raise above the average kung fu film. But in my eyes, it is an average kung fu film. But the fight scenes are pretty well done. This film was released in Hong Kong in March of 1978. I don't have any information on how much box office it drew, but at the same time, it was definitely something of popularity. Films like this, they just do well because it's the athleticism and the choreography that really drives them, and people get very excited when they see these kind of films like that. So that's what that was when it came down to the Shaolin ex-monk, also known as Notorious Ex-Monk. It has music that you've heard in dozens of kung fu films before. The opening theme or the main theme of the film is a very familiar tune from one of the westerns from the late 60s, I believe, or early 70s. But this is, what they had at that time, and people didn't care about the music. But American and Western filmmakers were concerned that the Chinese were stealing copyrighted music, for their Hong Kong films. Another reason why they didn't want to release certain films internationally, because you watch a kung fu movie and next thing you know, you got Curtis Mayfield playing on the screen, or it could be something like, Isaac Hayes, theme from Shaft and stuff like that. So they were always doing that with these films. It was kind of crazy how that happened a lot. Very rare did they use their own music, although there were some prolific Hong Kong and Taiwan music people who made good soundtracks. It's just that they were lazy. They would just copy and paste other music from elsewhere, because most of the time their films were dubbed in several different languages. They would be dubbed in Cantonese, Mandarin, sometimes mainland China, Chinese, simplified Chinese, or they would be dubbed in Japanese or even English. So there was always something going on with what they were doing. And it went on for during the whole Kung Fu movie boom. So you would see that kind of stuff taking place. Want to take a moment and see who we got out here in the chat today or this evening. I know once I get to talking, I'll be rambling on. Let's see who we got. It says we got over 20 something views, but only 2 people have written in the chat. We got the brother Shogun 76 out there. What's going on with you, Shogun? Good to see you. I missed you on a couple of the lives. I guess you was busy or something, but it's always good to see the Shogun of Harlem on the Kung Fu joint. Yes, sir. We got the brother Drew Titan LLC out there saying salute. What's good with you, Drew? You know anything about the Shaolin ex-monk, Drew? Huh? Or the Notorious ex-monk? A good, pretty darn good John Liu feature here. Shogun, how about this one? You should have this in your collection, bro. If you don't have this in your collection, I'm mad at you, and you get a C- for that, not having that Shogun. You gotta have the Shaolin X Month. You know, that music that you hear, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, this was a classic for that. Rashid Rourke is in the building as well, saying, please, peace, my brother, as Stormy B Man. Peace, everyone. What's going on with you, Rashid? Good to see you out there as well, man. Good to see you. But who else we got out there? I know we got more people out there. They just don't want to write in the chat. Must be a few more of those peeping through the blinds and the bushes. And you know what I got to say about that, man? Huh? When you're out there like that. Huh? What you doing? You know? I'll tell you what I think about them guys peeping through the blinds and the bushes. Peeping through my blinds and bushes on my kung fu joint, this is what I think.
For my own sake, I can't afford to call you my comrade. You're gonna die.
That's right, huh? You come around these parts, and that's what you get, huh? Yeah. Coming out here. That's right, huh? Shogun says, yeah, I got this. He says, I got this one sent for free. Okay, that's what's up. Listen, man. So Shogun, what'd you think of this one? What'd you think of the Notorious X Month? Huh? Your thoughts? Rashid is laughing. Yeah, man, come in here, just be watching, huh? Won't even hit the like button or nothing. Just be sitting out there like a bump on a log, huh? A boil on somebody's rear end, huh? Yeah. We're gonna pop them boils, huh? With a needle, huh? Let all the pus come out of it. Yeah. Shogun says, I like this one. He says, because I like the Kung Fu movies with bumbling, every man gets to learn Kung Fu. Yeah, and the training sequence in here was pretty cool when John Liu started putting them through some of those routines that were similar to what Jackie would do, you know. But the only thing about Jackie's Kung Fu training sequences is Jackie would create real excruciating moments where he had to train, and you know, he was put through a lot of hurtful scenarios. Like one of the famous ones that Jackie did was when Snake in the Eagle Shadow, or it was it Snake in the Eagle Shadows or Drunken Master, I get them mixed up, when he was hanging upside down with his feet tied up to the tree and a back and a board against his back, and he had to reach down into the bucket of water with 2 cups and do a sit-up upside down and dump the cups of water into the cup that was over his feet, you know, at the top. So it was basically, he was doing sit-ups upside down, but he was reaching into that bucket of water with 2 cups, 2 drinking cups, and would come up and pour the cups of water into the bucket that's up over his feet. Man, those were some tough sit-ups right there. Drew Titan, if you out there, try that and see, get back to me on that one, huh? And we'll see, huh, how good your Kung Fu is. Yeah! Jackie was good on some of that stuff. The torture stuff, Jackie was excellent, man. Like he would do the horse stance with the candle under his butt, and he had the bowls on his arms and hands like this, and he got to stand like that and just hold it. And I remember like when he was doing that, and the bad guy was standing over him with a feather trying to tickle him while he was doing that, because if he dropped those cups and stuff, those saucers, the master would come and punish him. He was tickling him with a feather while he's sitting in that horse stance. He was like, stop. Dude was like, let's see how you can stand there. He was tickling him with the feather. I was cracking up on that scene right there. Yeah, let's see. Rashid says, I don't think I saw this one. Shogun says, yeah, and beats up the bad guys. Yeah, when he finds out that his uncle is really the bandit and everything, he and John Liu team up to fight the Notorious Monk. It's a pretty darn good fight scene. And that Alan Sue, man, you know what's funny about him? He doubled a lot of guys in the kung fu film genre. Some of the main stars, he acted as a stuntman for them, because he was one of the few guys that could, he's a stuntman. He was a fill-in, a shadow actor for some of the guys to do some of that more skillful acrobatics. But his kung fu was pretty darn good. And even as he got to be an older guy, he was still doing some of that outstanding work in his career. It's unfortunate that he passed away, but he was one of the best that the industry had to offer. And if you want to know who I'm talking about right now, he's on the right side of the poster, the second man that's under, the first man that's under Cecilia Wong's image. That's Alan Sue. Very good fighter. He was in Bruce Lee, The Man, the Myth, with Ho Chung Tao, who played Bruce Lee in that. He was also in a number of films that were popular, as well as films that, he was in some Wong Fei-hung movies with Jet Li. He passed away in November of 2022. And he was just outstanding, man. He was one of the best that the industry had to offer. Let me see. He directed 2 films, and he was the action director in 3 films. And he was the martial art director for this film again. He and Blackie Cope. Let me see one of his best films that I think that he's in. I'm looking at his filmography right now. Yeah, he was in Fatal Flying Guillotines, To Kill a Jaguar, which was a Golden Harvest film, Broken Oath. He was in another film with Ho Chung Tao called The Last Strike, Born Invincible, The 36 Chambers of Shaolin, Dirty Tiger, Crazy Frog. I got that. That's a Sammo Hung film with Lu Chaolong. And the Instant Kung Fu Man, he was in that. Yeah, I remember him in there with Wang Cheng Li. So yeah, Alan Sue was really a good character actor / martial artist, man. The Wong Fei-hung film he was in, let me see if I could find where that is, where he was. Yeah, Last Hero in China. That was Jet Li. He was in that. That's a Wong Fei-hung film. But he kept on playing in roles up until the point when he passed away. He was definitely a strong character actor from the films. Yeah. Anybody got any questions on this one? Because, you know, that way I can kind of roll through there and keep you guys, you know, up on some specifics regarding this film. Yeah. Shogun, why you be so quiet out there in the chat, man? Cause you a kung fu dude. You got a big, huge collection of these films. I'm surprised you don't say more, man. You just kind of be laid back in the cut, chilling. Huh? I mean, there's nothing wrong with participating, you know? Drew Titan must have left out. He just hit the like button and come in and say hello. See, that's why his kung fu is not that good, because he can't stick around for the full lesson. Huh? You can't just peep through the window and be like, oh, that's what they doing? Okay, I'll go home and practice that. It don't work like that. You got to sit down, get the mentoring, you got to meditate, you gotta, you know, exercise with your chi, your breathing and everything. You gotta really put some emphasis into your techniques, otherwise your kung fu is no good. Yeah, Stormy will tell it like it is. It's like, yeah, get out of here with your so-called kung fu. Shout out to Lole, the white eyebrow priest. Rashid says, I'm sitting and waiting because I feel like I haven't seen this one. It should be on YouTube. I saw the trailer for it a little earlier on YouTube. And I would play the trailer for you guys, but YouTube be trying to demonetize my shows and stuff when I play the trailers. Even though these films ain't real licensed over here, some of these independents, and they'll still like put that little yellow mark up there on my damn. So I don't play the trailers no more. But I could play the trailers to make the shows more interesting and everything. But when I was doing that, and you know what? One of them films, which is one of the stupidest films, The Superior Youngster, aka Super Kung Fu Kid, or Karate the Hong Kong Cat, they told me to take that one down. So that's why that's not in my archives no more. They actually snatched that one down. I'm like, man, you gotta be kidding me. This is the most hokey kung fu film from the 70s. I remember when I saw it at the drive-in. Chung Yik, who was the star of that film, working the two nunchuckers, the guy who kind of looked like Jimmy Wang Yu, but not, you know, always had the two nunchucks. That's Chung Yik. They made me take that down. Superior Youngster, aka Karate the Hong Kong Cat. I was like, y'all gotta be kidding me. But that was just another one of those situations where they come at you, you know. I'm not trying to make money on that. It's like I'm trying to share with the audiences. And I'm going to tell you guys something. I've said this before. These Kung Fu film focuses, bro, they are so popular. They are my most watched joints out of anything that I do. It's just like right now, it shows that we got like 8 to 10 people in here. You same, my wrenches, they write, they watch and stuff like that. Chat a little bit, because you don't say too much in here. And I understand you want to hear me what I'm saying, but it still would be nice to have interaction. Because this is just a review, like I said, recollection and discussion. That's what this is all about. But people watch this, 2 days from now, it'll be a couple of hundred people who done seen it. A week from now, it could be 1,000. I did one of the Shaw Brothers films last month, over 20,000 views for the Shaw Brothers. I mean, where those people be at all the time? Now, I do more content besides this, but they know I do Kung Fu films, so they just be sitting back in the cut waiting for Stormy to do a Kung Fu film, and then they come? Come on, man. This is crazy, but it happens. Shogun says, I like to listen to you cook, brother. Man, I want to hear what you got to say. You know what I mean? Right in the chat. Cameron Fields is out there. She says, salute Stormy and chat. Salute to you. Rashid says, yes, it's not worth it, Stormy. Yeah, I know, to play those trailers and stuff, it's not worth it. I just, I skim over it. Tay Tay, the real queen, is out there saying, hey, Sifu, what's going on with you, Tay Tay? She says, I'm here, Sifu. I got you. Shogun says, hey, Stormy, have you ever seen a Kung Fu movie so bad that you just turn it off? Yeah, there's a couple of those that I've had a hard time getting through. And what's interesting is they star guys that that's been in good movies, but it's like it's hard to get through. Now I'm gonna tell you one that started out that way for me. The Iron Dragon Strikes Back, which I reviewed a few months back. That's that Ho Chung Tao, aka Bruce Lee film, also known as The Gold Connection. When I first started watching that film, I couldn't watch it all the way through because they running around with blue jeans on and stacks and stuff. But man, one day I sat down and watched that movie because I used to always turn it off early, and I didn't see it in the theaters. I saw it on DVD. VHS, actually, the first time I saw it. Man, I sat through that movie and watched it all the way to the end, and I saw how it ended. It blew my mind. That's why when I did the review of it on this show, I was like, man, that film, it was kind of tough to get through the early parts of it because you had Bruce Lee and these other guys, and they were like four buddies who were just palling around and stuff. He had a girlfriend, he drove a taxi, and his other friends, they were just like, low life dudes and stuff. And they found that gold that didn't belong to them, and their friend stole it, and then he didn't tell them he stole it, and then the mob came after him, who the gold really belonged to, because when he took it to a blacksmith and tried to have the markings on the gold burned off at the blacksmith, they checked around and they found out that blacksmith someone had brought gold to him, and he didn't want to tell who did it, so they killed the blacksmith, and then they was on to the trail of their friend. That movie turned out to be so good, and it's not really a Kung Fu film, it's an action film, but they do Kung Fu in there because in Hong Kong they weren't using guns like that. Good movie. I used to turn it off, Shogun, the first few times, until I watched it all the way through, and then I was like, man, I can't believe I've been missing a good movie like this just by turning it off. I remember I had a brother that used to get I used to make tapes of Kung Fu films for guys, and I used to make them for him, and he was like, man, just don't send me none of them where they're running around in street clothes wearing them stacks. That's what we call them, platform shoes. He's like, I don't want to see those. But what's interesting is some of those movies are pretty damn good. Mang Fei got one called The Young Tiger, and he made that around the time that he made The Prodigal Boxer, independent film, actually produced by Shaw Brothers Studios, but it don't have the Shaw label on it. But Young Tiger is another one of those films. it took me a while to get through that. And then when I finally did, I was like, oh, this is not bad. Ming Fei was in some good films in the early 70s. He was like going to be an independent film circuit answer to what some of the stuff that Bruce was doing and everything. Let's see here. Tay says, I miss Kung Fu Saturday. Shogun says, that movie just made me mad as hell. Which movie is that, Shogun? He said, I watched that film and it just made me mad as hell. Which one you talking about, Shogun? Made you mad as hell? The Gold Connection? Is that what you talking about? Yeah, Gold Connection turns out to be a pretty darn good movie, man, and I didn't even like it at first. But when I watched it all the way to the end and I saw how it ended, I was like, oh, this does not have a happy ending at all. Yeah, buddy. I was like, wait a minute. I can't believe I saw that. I ran the tape back. I was like, holy smokes, that's how that is? He said, yeah. Yeah, that movie was something else, man. It was something else. But you have to admit, Shogun, that movie is pretty damn good. It don't look like it from the surface. But whoever wrote that movie, they should have got like, Hong Kong Film Award for changing the situation up, because it was definitely not expected, man, what they did with that. That movie was something else, man. I was like, holy smokes, look at what they did here. While we here, I'm gonna take a moment and do my little, got my sponsor coming in here for this. Let me take a little break for the sponsor.
We offer the best grooming methods for you. It's all natural and handcrafted too. We wanna help be a swagger. Your style has some luxury. We got products that are made for you with high quality. Yeah. So get in style with the black, yeah. Company, you swagger. Style has some luxury in luxury. Yeah. Black, gentleman, black, yeah. Company, you swagger, style, that's luxury, yeah.
Located at www.theblackgent.com.
Yeah. I had to get the sponsors in for the show, man. That's what's up. We'll have some more coming up in a minute. Rashid says, I just checked to see if this movie is on YouTube, Stormy B, man. It's only in parts. Yeah, you gotta find it though. Notorious X-Monk is pretty good. It's pretty good, very entertaining. I think it's very entertaining. Shogun says the movie was great, but the ending was BS. No, the ending, listen. When I saw that ending, Shogun and chat, I was like, oh, this is kind of realistic. Because that's how real life is. You think everything gonna be hunky-dory. Nope. Those guys shouldn't have never fooled with that gold, man. They shouldn't have never fooled with that gold. Especially when they found out that those mobsters was after them. When they found that out, they should have been like, you know what? Just give these people their gold. They didn't want to give them folks the money, and they found out the hard way what that would mean. That was jacked up what happened too. Totally jacked up. Yep. But yeah, man. You know, I enjoyed this movie here. The Notorious Monk, aka the Shaolin X-Monk. See, you guys, you know, when there's good kung fu movies, there's great ones, there's ones that's in between, and then there are those who are just kind of like meh, you know. But when you like those films on all levels, you know, you can be entertained by them. Now, some of the comedy kung fu films I'm not a big fan of, but I've seen some. I have a few in my collection, but I'm not a real big fan of the comedy kung fu films. Not a big fan of those at all. But yeah, you know. So but yeah. I want to take a moment out here to hear from the brother, Focus Ball. Yeah, let's listen to Focus Ball.
Get ready to take your striking game to the next level with the Focus Ball. Dramatically improved footwork, timing, head movement, hand-eye coordination, reflex, and overall fight IQ. It's lightweight and extremely portable, so you can train every time, everywhere. When you don't have a coach to do mitt work, get a Focus Ball. When you don't have a heavy bag to hit, get a Focus Ball. When you don't have a sparring partner, get yourself a Focus Ball. And when you just want to have fun punching and kicking, get a Focus Ball. When you train with the Focus Ball, you train your eyes and your brain to read punches so that you can hit and not get hit. Making this very simple device a must-have for all combat sports athletes and enthusiasts alike. So if you want to take your striking game to the next level, don't wait. Get the Focus Ball now.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of another show, man, it's like, this film, Notorious Monk, aka Shaolin X Monk, is one to check out for the fight scenes. The plot is very thin. The performances are not that great, but the action scenes and choreography is pretty top notch. And that, again, being realistic about what can draw a person into Kung Fu films, that's kind of one of the leading temptations, is to watch the choreography. For example, there's a Bruce Lee exploitation film called Tower of Death, also known as Game of Death 2. Not a good film by any means. And that film, I believe, was produced in 1981 or 82. But that film has some of the best choreography, and it actually, Yuen Wu-Ping and his crew won a Hong Kong equivalent of action choreographer, like that's the equivalent of an Oscar for their choreography for that film. So if you ever watch the film, just watch the fight scenes. Whenever the fight scenes go down, you see some really well done action and acrobatics that are like breathtaking. So you have to understand, when you're watching Kung Fu films, it's all about what the individual who has an appreciation for these films, what they enjoy most for themselves. And that's kind of how I've kept it for me. But I still can come in and talk about the films, but I'm not going to pass something on as if it's so great you just got to see, it's a must see. No, I talk about them in an even-handedness that allows you to make the decision for yourself if you decide that you're going to check the film out. Everything I say and how I represent this genre is very earnest. And that's all I can do, is be the best person. Because I mean, my tastes are my tastes. But I just try to help guide you in the direction of, the observation of what this genre is and what it's all about. So, but with that being said, you guys, I'm going to head on out. Turn you guys over to the rest of your evening. I appreciate everybody who decided to come in and rock with me for tonight's show. Those who just passed by and threw some rocks, we still standing tall, huh? So we're gonna get on up out of here. Peace to everybody. Enjoy your weekend coming up, and we will catch you on the next one. Yeah!